Hi folks, Chris from Mammoth Interactive here. Today we're going to be talking about the difference between IDs and classes for CSS purposes. Before that, I just wanted to let you know we are offering a free 10-hour course that's going to be linked in the description to this video, so check it out. Alright, so you might have heard of classes and IDs before when referring to HTML and CSS, and today we're going to do a quick crash introduction to those. So the reason these are useful is because it allows us to target certain elements on the page that we have defined before. So, for example, if you make something and you give it a class or you give it an ID, that's going to be useful later on when you're trying to apply some styling with it in CSS. Maybe you want to do a different font, a different color, different size, whatever it may be. So it's really useful to have these identifiers because, yes, you can just say select all the P tags or all the A tags or whatever tag you may want. But usually you don't want to apply styling to every single element that matches that description on your page. You want to be more specific, right? You're going to want a responsive site that looks nice, that has styling over here that's different from styling over there. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick start here. So I'm going to make a div first of all. And if you're not aware what a div is, it's basically kind of a blank container that you can put stuff into. So when we have a div, you basically can wrap it around anything, and it's useful for styling everything within that container. So what I'm going to do right now is whenever you make a class, this is how it's done. I'm going to give this div a class, and you know what? I'm going to put a list of my favorite vegetables in here. So let's call this vegetables, right? Always a good idea to kind of name your class after what it's doing or what's contained inside of it. And what I'm going to do inside of this is make an unordered list. So the way you make an unordered list is you say UL, and of course I'm going to close my tag right off there. So unordered list, and then list items, you list them like so. So LI, of course, stands for list items. So let's see, I'm a big fan of carrots. So I'll put carrots there. You can see the output over here on JSBin, a very useful site. Gives us the output right away, carrots. Right, what else? Let's put in, I don't know, onions are pretty good, pretty useful. LI. All right, let's put in one more. Let's say, oh, I don't know, broccoli /LI. All right, so that's an unordered list. In case you're wondering the difference between an unordered list and an ordered list, I can just show you that really quickly. Change this to OL. And you can see that it would order it for us automatically, which is kind of a cool feature of the HTML if you ever need to make an ordered list. But you know what, for now, these are in no particular order, so I'm going to make this an unordered list. All right, so those are all contained in my div called vegetables. And you know what, I'm going to make another div here. And this one will be my favorite fruits. So we'll call that fruits. Close this div off here. All right, and I'm going to make actually another unordered list and close that off. All right, LI. So my favorite fruit, definitely apples. Also a big fan of bananas. Bananas, LI. And you know what, I'm going to throw in some watermelons in here too. All right, so we have our two unordered lists. They're each in a different div. And so what can we do now? Now we have classes for each of these divs. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we target these classes. I'm going to open up the CSS tab. I'm going to move this guy over a little bit. So the way you target a specific class in CSS is you just have to know the class name and you put a dot in front of it. So dot vegetables. Okay, and then you just treat it like any other CSS selector. So dot vegetables, again, I'm targeting this class over here because I named it vegetables. And I can apply any styling I want, and anything I do here will be applicable to the things inside the div. So let's say I want to change the color of the fonts to gray, for example. All right, it's kind of hard to tell. You know what? I'm going to change that to blue. And you can tell immediately it applied the styling to all of the items inside of that div, which is pretty cool. We can also say change the font style to italic. All right, and we can change the font size to, oh, I don't know, let's say 20 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so you kind of get the idea. And then if I wanted to target, say, my apples div, dot apples, color orange. Whoops, not dot apples, dot fruits. There we go. All right, so pretty straightforward. And so that's how you do a class. Now, there are times where you're going to want to be more specific. So let's say you have a class, and then within that class, you have a certain something you want to style a bit differently, for example. So let's say we're not a big fan of broccoli after all. So we're going to put an ID on this. Now, ID is a little bit different than a class, because ID, the purpose of an ID is it's really only meant to be used once. So for one element. So let's just do this. Least favorite. Okay, so this now has an ID of least favorite. So what does that mean? You can see it didn't really change anything. So why did I do that? Well, you have to actually select the ID and apply styling on it as well in your CSS. And the way you select an ID is a little bit different than selecting a class. So selecting an ID, you actually just put a number sign in front of it. And this one I called least favorite. All right, let's put some styling on it. So this one I'm actually going to change the color. Well, it's least favorite, so let's say red. And there we go. You can see that this ID item has now been changed to red. And you're wondering, hey, so I thought we applied styling to all vegetables. How come this is turning red? And the reason is IDs have a greater specificity than classes. And what that means is IDs will always override the class because it's much, much more specific. And that's kind of why you want to use IDs sparingly. So whenever possible, you want to use the least specificity as possible, because this can be very difficult to fix later on. If I have an ID, let's say it's buried down here, I have a whole ton of code, and I'm trying to apply styling to my vegetables, and I say, oh, okay, how come my broccoli is still red and my others are blue? Right? So you want to be careful with IDs. They are very powerful, but the downside is they are much more specific than classes. And just to reiterate, classes, you want to use it when you're styling a whole bunch of things. You want a whole bunch of things to have the same style. ID is for one specific selector. So one specific thing is where you would use an ID. Other than that, though, that's basically it. So from here, you can do all kinds of different things. So let's see what happens if I add another list item here with a link in it. So href, and this is how you do links in HTML. So this is called an A tag. Inside of these quotes, normally you would put a web address. So for example, http://www.yoursite.com. For now, I'm just going to put in this pound sign because this is kind of a good way to test it. And we'll call this test link. Okay, close off that A tag and also close off the LI over here. Okay, so now in our list, we have another item, test link. So we can see that we can apply styling to this. However, it's inside its own tag. So the way to do that, we would just say .vegetables. And we want to target every A tag inside the vegetables. Right? And we can say text decoration none. And now get rid of the underline. We could change the color here, make this match the others. All right, so now this is a link, kind of hard to tell, so you know what, I'm going to make this purple again. All right, so as you can see, you can select tags within the classes. You would also be able to do the same for any other div or class you have here. And that is the basics of classes and IDs. Give it a whirl, give it a try. Thanks for watching. Check out Mammoth Interactive for more, and I will see you next time.